that this is specific right now to the nonprofit cloud for programs. If you don't know, if you're not in the nonprofit space, we have worked off of managed packages for years. It was called NPSP. Before that, it had different names. But as of this last summer, so within the last few months, we are moving to core platform. It's called Nonprofit Cloud for programs, and then Nonprofit Cloud for fundraising. The cool thing about that is it gives us access to things that we didn't have access to before. And this is going to be one of those. So I am going to kind of just walk us through this and let you kind of get a sneak preview into what this looks like. So first of all, let me introduce myself a little bit and introduce my family. There's my guys, my husband, John, and my son, Nate, and our two littles. We live in the Dallas, Fort Worth area, so in Texas, for those of you who aren't familiar. And a little bit about me, my background is nonprofit management. I worked in that space for eons, longer than I want to confess to, before I moved over into tech. And I've been in the tech space for about 4 years. I've been in Salesforce for 3. And the reason I love Salesforce is because it does allow nonprofits to use some really great technology to make a difference in the world. And that's important to me. Making a difference and being significant in the lives of others really rates high for me on my needs assessment. So because of that, when I found out about outcome management, I was actually really thrilled. When they first told us they were going to core, I wasn't so thrilled. I'll just be honest. Those of us in the nonprofit space have worked really hard to learn NPSP and all these different managed packages. And so going to core felt like a big shift, to be honest. But then they started introducing some really great apps and functionality like outcome management, and I started getting really excited. And so because BuzzBold is a partner with Salesforce, I got to have a sneak peek into some of this. And then when it got announced at Dreamforce, we were finally able to share it with our clients and with the community. So pretty excited about being able to talk this up and encourage, hopefully, some of you to look into it. But before we get into the outcome management app, I want to make sure everyone knows what I mean by outcome management, because if you're not in this space, a lot of times what I found in tech is we use different words to mean the same thing. So with outcome management, think of KPIs for those of you in the 4-cell space. An outcome is just basically the change that you are expecting as a result of your program, of your service, of your delivery, of whatever you want to see done differently. And outcome management is how we manage or track that progress over time to measure our effectiveness. Okay, it's what lets us drive towards continual improvement. This language, even though the words might be different, salespeople speak this language, service people speak this language, everybody speaks this language, right? Because we're all trying to make a change of some sort, and we have to track it in order to measure it. And so I worked up a use case scenario for us to try to just kind of figure out what some of these different words mean. And so I'm going to say we are going to run a pet adoption center, okay? And our pet adoption center finds homes for stray animals. So if that were the case, one of our outcomes or the changes we expect to see is a reduction in the number of cats and dogs wandering loose in our community. And here in the States, we call that the stray population. I don't know if that's true everywhere, but that's what we call it. To manage that kind of outcome, we actually have to focus in on what's called the SMARTs, right? So that is our specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, timely outcomes or goals, so we can track how we're doing. Because without good data, without good tracking, we can't really reveal if we're accomplishing what we say we're going to accomplish, right? So that's kind of what outcomes are in outcome management, okay? But the whole goal of outcome management, and I think this is true again across industries, is impact. So although when you're in the weeds collecting data and measuring and analyzing all of that data, you start feeling like it's an end in itself, it starts feeling overwhelming. The actual goal of our outcome management is impact, right? We want to see long-term positive change. And typically, we align that with whatever our organizational goals are. So, using our Pet Adoption Center as our example again, despite the fact that less stray animals on the streets is a wonderful outcome, our long-term impact as a pet adoption agency is bigger than that, right? We actually might want to see decreased euthanasia rates. We might want to see improved animal welfare laws. We might want to see stronger community bonds. So we have lots of different outcomes, short-term changes we want to see, but in the big picture, we have bigger impact that we're trying to make, okay? So in the nonprofit space, impact is what drives us. It's what drives the people who work in it. It's what drives people to give to those organizations. It's what drives our volunteers. It's what drives our our funding streams. It drives everything. We want to see long-term positive change in our world. And in order to make that happen, in order to be able to maximize that impact, we have to know what's working and what isn't working. Okay. So along comes the Nonprofit Cloud Outcome Management app. So basically, this app is going to help us be able to track and evaluate our outcomes to maximize impact. So what you'll find in the nonprofit space is we're pretty good about setting up a strategy, saying what we want to accomplish. But being able to track it and then analyze it is really overwhelming. It's just not, honestly, where most of our head space goes. We are all about the programs and about the people and about the animals and about the environment, whatever your goal, your impact is that you're wanting to make. But how do we actually measure is really, really hard for us. And there are probably some people that it comes easy to, but I don't see too many of them around. So what this tool is designed to accomplish is to help us track and evaluate our outcomes all in one place in Salesforce so that we can more readily show the impact, the accomplishments that we have, and make changes when we're not accomplishing the things we are setting out to do. Okay, so I don't have it in a demo, which I kind of wish I did, except that I do know live demos are really nerve-wracking. So I did some screenshots here to kind of walk you through what outcome management looks like. These come from a couple of different resources because, again, there's not a lot of documentation out on this yet. So I've kind of stolen them from from Dreamforce and from just a couple of different resources that I had. But so although there's not a lot out, it's coming out. This new release, we've got more trails and stuff coming out. So here's some screenshots. Let's kind of look behind the scenes. So first, what a nonprofit has to do here is set up their impact strategy. And that's what this is a screenshot of. And this is just one part of an impact strategy. Typically in a nonprofit space, you've got multiple strategies that you are aligning. And so in this particular case, the team that is setting this up is trying to make a difference in financial well-being. And so what you'll see here is we've got our impact strategy at the big here. And over here, we've got some descriptions. Of course, we like those because those help us know when we come back in here what we're shooting for. But then under this, you'll see what we call our outcomes, right? Those changes we're trying to make. And some of those changes include this reduce debt to income ratio, reduce debt among program participants, etc. Okay, so those are our outcomes. So what a nonprofit can do with this app is they can set their strategies in place, and then under it, they can align the outcomes that are driving to each of their strategies. Get to my button here. Okay. And then next, they can add their indicators. So an indicator is basically just what you think of a KPI. That's our measurement of how I know how I'm doing. So in this particular case, our reduced debt to income ratio, our indicator would be our debt to income ratio. We want to see that change. That's how we're going to know if we're actually accomplishing what we've set out to say we would accomplish. This is relatively new to me. Some of you may recognize it depending on what your industry background is, but this is built in what's called an ARC, an Actionable Relationship Center. Okay. They are sending it out as a template that we can then configure, enable, and put into our nonprofit orgs. Okay. So then we go next to activities. So this is a new outcome activity, and you can tell this is from a different document because it's a little bit fuzzy, so I apologize for that. But we have to capture our activities that we're going to do or plan to do and align them with our outcomes, right? So this activity is what is going to basically join our outcome to whatever our program or our service or benefit is. So this is a join between the two. Otherwise, you just got random outcomes sitting out there. You've got random programs sitting out there, but nothing that's connecting the two to show that this one is driving towards that. Okay, so that's what this is for. Okay, and then next, we have to set up our time period. Remember our SMART goals, we have to have very specific, measurable, time-bound goals. And so that is what this is for. So this is part of our indicator. We set up whatever our target values are, our baseline values are. We have over here our progress. So are we hitting it? Are we in the red? Where do we fall? And then what is our time period? Is this a quarter? Is this a 6 month? Is this a year? Is this a 5 year? Right? So we have to be able to set this so that we can actually measure against it. Once we have all those pieces in place, then we can actually see how we're doing. We have to start collecting our data, obviously, which is the strength of Salesforce, right? In the nonprofit space, it is very common before Salesforce, sometimes after Salesforce, to have random spreadsheets, email messages, notepads. I mean, the data can just be everywhere. And I don't know if that's true in other industries, but it's really true in the nonprofit space. And so by setting up our Salesforce, by teaching people how to use it, we can get all that data into one place so that then we can collect it, report out on it, review it, make changes as we need. Like in this sheet, if you can see, we've got our targets, and some of them are on track, some of them are done, and some of them we're at risk of being able to meet or not meet. And so it is a way for both the program people, the people inside, to make a difference, but also to show it off to our funders and to our stakeholders to make sure that they understand where we're at and where we're going. Okay. And then this app also comes with this really great dashboard. Okay. So they are, again, shipping it out this way. Like all Salesforce dashboards, these can be set up to share. They can be tweaked and changed to meet whatever the goals and put on here, whatever your people need. But it lets us see what we're doing. It lets us adjust so we can. One of my favorite things about actually having this outcome management app is that instead of like getting to the end of a period, going out collecting manually, because I've done this, manually collecting data, reviewing it, and then being like, gosh, instead of offering tutoring once a week, we should have been offering tutoring 3 times a week because we didn't meet this goal, right? And you don't know that till 6 months down the way. By having it here, the data going in, being able to kind of check it real time, then you can be making changes along the way to say, okay, we're not making the kind of impact that we want to be making. What do we need to change to get ourselves on track? And so the dashboard is really useful for that. Okay. So I dropped in, I actually wrote a blog that is on our BuzzBolds page. that you can go check out if you want to know more about this. One of my favorite things about this new app is, although right now it's tracking into the nonprofit cloud, they plan to actually release it across multiple sectors. So I've got in my notes here, let me look at it. It's going to be released with this new release, so like in the next couple of weeks, to public sector solutions, energy and utility cloud, net zero cloud, manufacturing and automotive cloud. And I've heard it's coming out for education cloud too, but I don't know when, because that's not listed for this winter release. So for more information, you can go to this blog. There's some documentation within it so that you can learn more about this as it comes out.
Yeah, great. So the dashboards that you were showing, I noticed that they were using CRMA or Analytics Studio rather than standard reports and dashboards. So does that come included with the outcomes pack, or is that extra licensing that needs to be considered?
Those screenshots were taken from the documentation, and so my assumption, and it is an assumption on my part, is whatever they are sending out, since that came from documentation, it will be what you saw.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're giving away quite a lot with nonprofit cloud, aren't they, Sheala?
They are. They're giving a lot away. They're doing a data cloud. They've got what is it? Some Tableau. Yeah, quite a bit.
Ideal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one more question in the room. Go ahead, Andy.
It does look really good, non-profit cloud. What I'm not quite clear on is people who are already have an organ non-profit success pack. Are they going to have to pay to switch over to non-profit cloud, because you're getting a lot more in that deal? So will they be expected to have to pay to migrate their license across? Do you know?
Oh, that's a great question. I actually did a Dreamforce watch party, and we watched we did the nonprofit the speaking together, and it's coming up a lot, right? Will they have to pay for the licenses changeover? I don't get the impression that they'll have to pay for new licenses if they want to migrate. However, like any migration, you're going to have someone help you do it, right? And so I know some really small orgs that are just like, we're going to stay put on NPSP until we can't anymore. It's going to continue to be supported. And so they're going to be supporting both trails for quite some time. But there is a lot of new functionality coming out with the nonprofit cloud. I would guess, especially some of the bigger orgs will make a switch over, sooner rather than later. So I hope that made sense. So I don't think they're going to have to pay for new licenses, because you know that if you apply, you get 10 free licenses, right? But migrating is no joke. And so they'll have to have someone do that. Yeah, Debbie.
From watching on Dreamforce as well, I think what it is the individual license costs will increase, won't they? Because they're more expensive for the new nonprofit cloud than they are for NPSP. So I think there will be the ongoing costs will increase for that as well.
And I know they did
the migration costs.
They did take the price did go up per user. Is that what you mean? Yeah. But I thought that was across the board, NPSP and nonprofit.
No, I think the nonprofit cloud is going to be more expensive.
Oh, okay.
Because it's going to include more as standard. So
more functionality. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a great question. I can't say that I have all the answers. If you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn, I can see if I can't track down answers for you.
Thanks very much.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that input, Debbie, and thank you to Sheala for a great presentation. There's some wonderful features there that I think, as you say, Salesforce are going to be rolling out in other places as well. So thanks very much for joining us from across the pond and sharing those insights.